We have some major Celtics rumors to discuss on today's show, but I could not start without this challenge that I was presented from our friends over at Knicks Now by Chat Sports. Marshall Green, the host over there, said we couldn't get 25 new subs on this video. He said the Celtics fans are not locked in for the offseason, so I need you guys to prove him wrong and go down below and hit that big red sub button for free Boston Celtics content all offseason long. What's going on, Green Teamers? You're watching Celtics Today by Chat Sports. I am your host, Tyler Smith, and on today's show, are we getting one more favor from our friend trader Danny Ainge over there who's now in Utah? Yeah, that is a potential trade partner with the Boston Celtics for this summer, as they don't have a ton of money on their books, and we know the Celtics have to get money off of theirs. And with the relationship between, we know, Brad Stevens and Danny Ainge there together as a duo in Boston for so long, could it be an easy trade partner to kind of do business with this summer? Brian Robb of MassLive, Celtics Insider, said this. He said, league sources tell MassLive that the Jazz showed interest in acquiring Kristaps, Porzingis, and Jrue Holiday via trade back in 2023 before both players landed ultimately in Boston. Whether Holiday or Porzingis interest the Jazz front office now, a couple of years later, will be a fascinating question. But the Jazz could be a big wild card in the NBA offseason if they start trying to push back towards playoff contention. That last sentence, I'm not so sure as the Jazz are going to be pushing for playoff contention, especially in the uber competitive Western Conference, but I'm sure they do want to get better at this point. They just signed Will Hardy to a major contract extension, and they're going to be looking to move up from this point on, not back down and repeat as the NBA's worst record. Now, the Jazz have a good amount of flexibility to work with this offseason to be a trade partner for not just the Celtics, but multiple teams around the league. 25-26 cap space. Yeah, this kind of ranks in the top 10 in the league. I know they're in the negative, so the financial landscape across the league is really, really brutal at this point. Nobody has cap space, but the Jazz aren't in the worst spot possible. They're not a tax-paying team. Expiring contracts on their books as well. Like, they could be the Brooklyn Nets of 2026. They have $60 million coming off their books at the end of the 2025-26 season, and their top salary maker on the roster right now is Lauri Markkanen at $27 million. They have no massive contracts on their books. So it could be a team that Boston sees as a team that could take on bigger contracts, and the Celtics could get off some of their longer-term deals on their books, i.e. Jrue Holiday. And the Celtics, with the Jazz's current standing, with them only having a $27 million player at the top of their books, the Celtics can probably aggregate contracts in a Jazz trade if, the salaries that, are being exchanged aren't too close, or the Celtics aren't taking back the highest salary player in the trade. So let's look at a couple of, guys on the Jazz roster that could be of interest to Boston, and specifically expiring deals. Now, we know the Celtics aren't going to just straight up salary dump Jrue Holiday or Kristaps Porzingis this summer. There are going to try to get some value back, and there is some value back in these players on the basketball court, but a lot of the value comes in their deals expiring after next season. So these could be a rental, and that money could come off your books after next year. So Jon Collins comes in at $26.6 million. He does have a player option, and kind of like I've been saying, with the NBA's financial landscape right now, it's probably pretty probable that he goes and accepts that player option and doesn't test the open market, because nobody could probably pay him a figure on that year annually. What about Colin Sexton at $19 million? He's a good shot creator. I like him a good bit, and a good $20 million contract that's coming off the books next year. Jordan Clarkson, I like him a little bit less. He takes probably some bad shots if you're a true basketball fan, but $14 million is a flexible, movable asset. KJ Martin there at $8 million as well, coming off the books for Utah. But to be honest with you guys, Jon Collins is probably the name that I'm most intrigued by here. Is if I'm Brad Stevens and if I'm Joe Mazzulla and looking at the Celtics team and trying to compete in the Eastern Conference next year, well, I would try to get a player that's as effective on the basketball court as Jon Collins. And does he have to be a long-term piece for Boston? No, he could just be a stopgap for next season in this gap year without Jason Tatum to kind of help supplement the scoring loss that you have with Tatum's sideline. He averaged 19 points a game last year. He has expanded his game to become a floor spacer. We know how high of a flyer he is as a lob threat and an attacker of the rim, and he has really progressed over the last couple of seasons as a real player in this league. Look, is he ever going to be an all-star level guy? Probably not, but he can provide a lot of good on the basketball court. Solid enough rebounder. Like, he's not a true 7-footer, so he plays a little bit bigger than his frame suggests. He's a 19-point per game guy, and yeah, that was on a really bad Utah Jazz team last season, but if you're telling me he couldn't average 17 on efficient numbers every single night in Boston, then you'd just be lying to yourself because he did it on a bad team, averaging 53% from the field and 40% from three. Yeah, I want that on the Boston Celtics, and with him being on an expiring deal, he could be an expendable and cheap asset for Boston to go out and trade for. So what do you guys think? Should the Celtics trade for Jon Collins? Is that a name that intrigues you for next season or potentially beyond, as he would only have one more year left on his contract? Yes or no? Let me know in the comment section if Jon Collins is a name that you would want to see wear some Celtic green. Now next, why exactly would the Jazz help Boston in a trade this offseason? What is going on in Utah? If you know, you know. We're going to explore why the Jazz are the perfect trade partner for the Celtics in just a moment, but I got to tell you guys first about our proud sponsor, and that is Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports platform because it's daily fantasy made easy. Here's how it works. Just pick a sport or multiple sports. Yeah, basketball, hockey, playoffs are in full force right now, and you can mix and match and win up to 2,000 times your money picking more or less on your favorite players' projected stats. Yes, watch your favorite sports and win real money in real time with Prize Picks. And they're the best because it's so aesthetically pleasing to use, but they also make it easier for you guys to win real money in real time with awesome deals like Taco Tuesday, which it is Tuesday today. So they're going to discount some player stat projections for you to make it easier to win your lineup. They also have Flex Friday, where if you lose your lineup, they'll give it back to you in promo funds up to $20. And we got the finals starting up this week. I got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in Game 1 to go for more than 33.5 points. I got Isaiah Hartenstein to go for more than 7 rebounds. And then Tyrese, Burton, to go for more than 9 assists. You can tail my picks or fade them. Just do it at Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the promo code CLNS for $50 instantly when you place your first $5 entry. That's our deal to you here at Celtics Today. Code CLNS. Use it. All that information is clickable down in the comments section and description of today's video. Prize Picks. Run your game. Look, the reason that the Jazz are the perfect trade partner with the Celtics this offseason is because there's relationships there. The Jazz are quite literally Celtics West. Yeah, the entire personnel that's running the brain trust over there in Utah is basically just a bunch of Celtics throwaways. I mean, we talked about the relationship between Danny Ainge and Brad Stevens at the top of today's show. Like, Danny is the foundation of what we saw come to a full culmination last year with the Celtics raising the Larry O'Brien trophy. Like, he drafted Jaylen Brown. He drafted and made the trade for Jason Tatum. He brought in Derek White. Like, there are so many, he didn't bring in Derek White, but he drafted Robert Williams, who was a vehicle to go get Jrue Holiday. He drafted Aaron Nesmith, who was a vehicle to go get Malcolm Brogdon. They drafted Marcus Smart. It got the KG Pierce trade. Traded KG and Pierce for all the picks that got you, Brown and Tatum. So, Danny Ainge, Celtics fans owe a lot of their success to this man right here. And look, to be honest with you, is it going to be easy to make a trade with the man who has swindled every franchise that he's ever done a deal with? No, so I am a little bit hesitant for Brad Stevens, a young general manager, to kind of get in the ring with a vet like Danny, but you never know. He could throw Brad a bone and try to help out the Celtics, kind of like Kevin McHale did way back when KG got traded from Minnesota. But it doesn't stop there. What about going from the front office down to the floor and look at the coaching staff? Will Hardy, who I mentioned, got a contract extension through 2031. He was a Celtics assistant back in 2021 and 2022. So, he was a part of that 2022 finals run. Then he goes and gets hired to be the Utah Jazz head coach and has been there ever since 2022 and will be there for the foreseeable future. So the Celtics is breeding smart names here. He was actually probably pegged to be the next Celtics head coach, but he obviously left a little bit before that could come to fruition. And then most recently, we got a big piece of Celtics news, as it's not too often that we see seismic change in the front office, but Austin Ainge, Danny Ainge's son, actually just got hired by the Utah Jazz on Monday as their new president of basketball operations. So it seems like it's going to be a 1-2 tandem at the top of the Utah Jazz front office between father Danny and son Austin here. And he was the Celtics assistant GM from 2019 through 2025. Chris Forsberg of NBC Sports Boston said this about the loss of Ainge. He said, in Ainge, the Celtics are losing a whole bunch of institutional knowledge and someone who understood the vision of the team. Let's see if the addition of another Ainge in Utah leads to any additional Celtics Jazz trade chatter as both teams figure out their path moving forward. It's possible. Like, there are multiple names now saying, like, look, there could be a little bit of Celtics Jazz trade chatter this offseason, and I think it's completely plausible to think so. I mean, I don't think that there's any bad blood. I don't think that Danny Ainge, I'm sure, likes a lot of players on the Celtics roster. There was reported interest in Jrue Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis way back when, so I'd assume that he likes the players on the roster at this point. But back to Austin Ainge real quick. He is a big loss for the Celtics front office. Like, he was a key part in the pre-draft process, talent evaluation. He was a big time facet in the decision-making process for a lot of the Celtics, draft needs, free agency, trades. Like, he was in the room for a lot of big-time decisions made by this franchise, and it's going to be a loss. Like, he has a ton of knowledge. He's been learning from his father for the past 40-some-odd years, and has, like Forsberg said, a ton of institutional knowledge. So the Celtics are going to have to look externally to help replace him, as that has not been something that they're used to in, honestly, franchise history. They keep a lot of things in-house. When they made the hire of Brad Stevens and then tried to, kind of build a staff around him, they kind of hired from within and made a lot of, inside promotions there to get that done. They don't go external for a lot of their options. And for a lot of the guys on their assistant coaching staff, way back when with Ime Udoka and Will Hardy, those guys came from the Spurs. Like, the Celtics don't exactly take the biggest swings when it comes to making hires. So this is going to be a big time, position that needs to be filled for Boston. Assistant GM, as Austin Ainge has departed for Utah. And Austin Ainge made a statement in his introductory press conference in Utah as well. With the Utah Jazz having the worst record in the NBA this past season, on tanking, he said, quote, "You won't see any of that this year." So does that mean that the Utah Jazz are going out and looking for win-now talent and pieces that can help them win more basketball games in 25-26? I'd assume a guy that just got hired to be at the top of the basketball decision-making pyramid would probably want to get some good players on his roster in his first year. So get creative for me down in the comment section before we get a creative Celtics Jazz trade idea. Comment below a Celtics Jazz trade idea that you would like to see this offseason. They got a ton of expiring deals. They got some good young talent around. Could the Celtics poach away some of or one of the Utah Jazz's promising young talents? Let me know a Jazz trade idea that you guys would like this offseason. A dream trade target for me would be Walker Kessler. And do I think it's entirely realistic? No, because a 7-footer who, outside of Victor Wembanyama, led the NBA in blocks last season at 23 years old on a rookie contract is not exactly an easy chip to go out there and trade for, especially when you consider what Boston would be trying to send away in any deal to Utah, Jrue Holiday or Kristaps Porzingis, who both make over $30 million. But Kessler would be absolutely awesome as a Boston Celtic man, and with this gap year coming up and Tatum not probably being back until 2026, 2027, you get this guy who will be around 25 years old at that point, and you're going to be looking at a really, really solid foundational piece in the front court for Boston. Like, he's going to be around a while. He's been healthy, and he's got room to improve on the offensive end. I think Walker Kessler is going to be a mainstay in this league, and I would love to see him at Boston if somehow they could work out a trade. But I probably doubt it. Like, I don't think that the Jazz are going to just give a gift to Boston in the way kind of that Kevin McHale gave the Celtics KG back in 2007. Danny Ainge is a very smart basketball mind. It seems like they're trying to do things the right way over in Utah at this point. So they're not just going to let Brad Stevens and the Boston Celtics fleece them for nothing. That's never been in Danny Ainge's blood. And at the end of the day, the Jazz, they don't even have to like KP or Jrue Holiday as potential assets for their roster next season. With the relationship that Danny Ainge and Brad Stevens have at this point, the Jazz could technically just be used as a vehicle or a third team in any potential Celtics trade this offseason to get some money off of their books. So they don't necessarily have to bring in Jrue Holiday or Kristaps Porzingis. There's no new reported interest on those guys. It's just back in 2023. So could the Jazz potentially be a third team that gets involved in a Celtics trade? Well, I saw this trade idea on Fanspo as I was scouring for Celtics Jazz trade ideas. There aren't a ton out there, folks, let me tell you. So if you guys get creative in the comment section, let me know what a good one looks like. But the Jazz are a third team vehicle in this trade idea that sends Jrue Holiday to the Orlando Magic, along with having to attach a 2026 first-round pick for Boston. That one could be pretty valuable without Tatum next season. The Celtics in return, though, would get Jordan Clarkson from the Jazz and Wendell Carter Jr. from the Orlando Magic. Now, out of players that could be acquired in a Jrue Holiday trade, Wendell Carter Jr. is right at the top of guys that I would want in Boston. A true Al Horford clone, in my opinion. And if you get Horford back for next season after adding Wendell Carter Jr., that could be such a seamless transition, and he could take and sponge up so many great qualities about Al Horford's career and help Wendell Carter be the center of the future for Boston. I like this deal a lot, and the Jazz get a couple of second-round picks from the Magic in exchange for getting rid of Jordan Clarkson and being a vehicle in this trade. They also get KCP back in the deal. And the Celtics, they shed some money in this trade as well. They shed $7.2 million. Now, they are about $22.5 million away from being below the second apron, so they would still probably have to make another deal in order to really have the financial flexibility that they're looking for heading into next season. They would still probably need a Kristaps Porzingis trade to get this done, and honestly would have to find a team that can absorb his contract a good bit or find another 3-team trade. Like, to get under the second apron, the Celtics are still going to need to trade Kristaps Porzingis. There's no doubt about it if they were to make that deal that we just presented to you on screen. And the Magic have been reported as an interested team in Jrue Holiday, so we could see something like this go down, and the Jazz could be that trade partner for the Celtics, or at least a vehicle to help them execute and get some money off of their books. So on this trade idea, would you accept it? Let me know in the comment section. A for accept, D for decline on Jordan Clarkson and Wendell Carter Jr. coming to Boston, with them sending away Jrue Holiday and a 2026 first-round pick. A for accept, D for decline. You let me know what you think down in the comment section, and make sure you are subscribed to the channel. That will do it for today's edition of Celtics Today by Chat Sports. We'll keep you guys in the loop for everything Boston Celtics related this offseason, so lock us in, hit that big red sub button. We'll see you guys on the next one, and as always, let's go C's.